Struggling to keep customers coming back? Wondering how to turn retention into real revenue? Whether you are just starting out or a seasoned business pro, join us to explore AI-driven innovations, churn prevention strategies, and customer success tactics that actually work. Welcome to Retain and Gain. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Retain and Gain. I'm Michaela Carpenter, your host, and today we have a very interesting topic that we are going to be talking about with Sally. Welcome, Sally.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
That topic is unrealistic expectations. How great is that? So, hi, Sally. Great to have you. Could you tell us a little bit about how you got into customer success and why are we talking about what we are talking about today?
Yes, many thanks for having me. And I already loved the prep question when you were like, what's the biggest fuck up? It's like, I have a list. Let me look at it. So I'm Sally. I'm the co-founder at Customer Obsessing Consulting. And what we do is help either companies build customer success teams from scratch, develop them further on if you already have a handful of CSMs, or at a later stage, optimize processes, tooling, usage, and so on and so forth. But we've been doing that for the last 3 years. We're based in Germany, so we are in contact with a lot of German mid-market type companies, a lot of scale-ups. So we do see a lot of rough contexts and situations. So
I can imagine.
That's where my thoughts came from. And how I ended up in customer success is actually a bit unconventional, because I came through the project management area. So I'm a trained project manager, and then kind of fell into the CS operations space back at a company called Twilio, where I did the background and the CS operations projects for the CSMs there. So I did always work in the background, helping CSMs setting up what they need. And this was what I now do just at many more companies.
Awesome. So, with seeing all these companies helping to build them customer success, what is the biggest mistake that you see when they are setting expectations, or are their expectations realistic in more cases?
Yes, that's a good question. And it's in the title already. It's not. And we have everything from no expectations, although usually there's a pain. So I would assume like there's an underlying expectation that CS solves the pain that an organization is feeling. Usually that's firefighting too many customer tickets, that's securing sudden churn that we'd be surprised by in another case. So this pain is probably the underlying expectation that we'll solve that like that. And then we have cases where just leadership sets unrealistic expectations out straight. And that's the wildest to me. We currently are working with a customer that we had quite a bit of lead time before we started working together, because when I first met them, they challenged, they had the challenge of 20+% churn in the last year.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously,
that's not a small number, yeah.
No, that's tough. And especially net new is also not super easy. They are in the e-commerce space, so it's not that new customers would fall off the sky.
Yeah.
And when I met them, leadership's goal, and I put goals in quotations here, was to lower churn in a single year from plus 20% down to 0%.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Strategy. And it was like part of their yearly goals. I was like, how is that's not a goal? I mean, that's an aspiration. That is a wish, but that's not
a unicorn.
Exactly.
In a paradise, like.
Just doesn't exist. And then B, that's not actionable at all. What would you as a CSM be taking from that? What do I do tomorrow to achieve that so-and-so quote goal? So yeah, that's just a situation that a lot of CSMs have to deal with. And I'm sorry for them.
So when somebody comes to you with, this kind of goal, let's say, like, what do you tell them? Do you just go like flat out like, oh, this is stupid? Or do you like, how do you handle that,
That's what I'm thinking. I'm not saying it out loud because I want them to hire me. So I stay polite. No, but what we do say is how, like just questioning the behind. And I think that's the first big takeaway for CSMs as well. You get a goal assigned, try to understand it. And you can be really polite about it. You can go, help me to understand what led you to believe that this is realistic. Help me to understand what it takes for me to get there. Help me to pull together a project plan. And that is usually where also in this example case, conversation already stops, because they're like, well, that's none of my business. I don't know. Why would I know? It's your job. And then I try to like reverse engineer it. And I'm like, here's the setting screws that I have, like reaching out, monitoring health, offering enablement, whatever it might be. But for every action item, I'm like, maybe we reach parts of that. Maybe we reach parts of the customer base that I can recover, but never all of them. And another great one that we also used in that case is try to understand what type of churn they're talking about. Because 25% or 20% churn, that's just not all based on the economy. Because that was their takeaway. Their takeaway was, oh, well, economy's shit.
Yeah, and also, so many companies have such a different definition of churn, because somebody just measures logo churn, so they only look at how many customers are leaving.
Yes.
Somebody's looking at like what revenue is leaving. So it's just like, yeah, churn is a term, but so many people interpret it differently. So that's also something I feel like you need to clear up when you're talking about churn.
100%. And not even like just between different companies that we measure it differently. We've come across internal teams that measure it differently. And finances looks at revenue lost, and the CS team looks at logos lost, and sales looks at opportunities lost. And like it's all different kind of, you compare apple to pears. And then sales is screaming because you lost 2 big opportunities, but you're like, yeah, but that's in one account. So in my CSM's numbers, it counts as one. And finance is like, well, I don't care about your 15 accounts. That one opportunity was bigger.
Yeah.
So that's another whole area of fuck up. No definitions. Get a glossary together in your companies. That's a big one as well. But coming back to the churn reasons, I'm with you. A, understand what we mean. And then B, understand what types of churn reasons did we have. Because surely there's some insolvencies, retirements, whatever in there.
That you can solve.
Exactly. And also in your 0% goal, what would you do about them? Not let them go? Not let them retire?
And if you have a customer that is just a chronic complainer or like asks for refunds, like you don't want that customer either. So there is a good churn as well, right?
Exactly. We would differentiate the regrettable and the non-regrettable churn. And if you're in this
I love that term.
Yeah, exactly. Let's look at those that we're sad about leaving. Let's look at those that we could have done something. And that's what we did with them. So we broke it down and we figured maybe 15% of that was preventable. We could have done something about that. And then we went into that and we were like, if we were to solve this, then your churn number would lower to, I don't know what it is, like about 9% or so. That's a realistic goal. But also, that is not going to happen this year. They happen to have one single CSM. Oh. She was already overwhelmed.
Probably burned out.
Exactly. So we were like, okay, it's achievable that this year, for example, we do an assessment, that we recover something, some quick wins, and we lower it to below 20. That's fair. Next year, let's look at lowering it towards 15%. And that doesn't account yet for what else is happening in a company. Because that's the other fuck up for CSM.
And in the world, right?
Yeah.
Because that influences a lot.
Exactly. It's the world and it's the company. So I get it. It's a very complex topic, but the CEO, CFO looking at it and being like, lower, it's just not it.
Do you think that could be caused by people just going on LinkedIn and they see all of these like inflated success stories in a bubble? Because like, let's be real, like most of the people wouldn't post the real truth or like the raw truth of the fuck up on LinkedIn. They would just post like what came after once they fixed it. So do you think that influences people's perception on how they think that like this is achievable, this is real, and it's a quick win?
I think so. I think it's definitely the peer pressure that they must be having or that we all share. But it's also, I think, I mean, if you look at sales influencers, for example, you will hear a lot more fuck up stories on their LinkedIns where they're just like, I lost this huge opportunity, I fucked up this customer dinner or whatever. And I think that comes from a place of sales being so established that we kind of know what's happening. And then it's also fair that we know it's hard. You can't always succeed. But CS, on the other hand, is this fresh department. Oftentimes you have to fight for your budget. You have to fight for the right to exist for your
Oh,
team.
yeah.
So you would not be the one that is like, oh, we tried, but that was horrible. So you would not share that. So maybe it's also this difference in the sales versus CS perception.
Yeah, we talked about that with the other guests that, when you say like a project manager, everybody knows what they do. When you say sales, everyone knows what they do because that name already suggests it. But then when you say customer success, like a lot of companies even have a different definition. So somebody's like, are you doing surveys? Are you doing UX? What are you doing? Are you support? Are you service? So it's still like a big mystery. I don't think that it is like that well established that everyone would know immediately when you say customer success, like, oh yes, this is what it is.
True. And there we are again at the point of, if I don't know what it is, I don't know what it takes to be successful in it. And then they look at these stories, and I'm with you, like the peer pressure. If you look at a HubSpot, what they're doing out there, at any other American corporation that has huge CS teams, I get that they are way more established and that they're way more successful. But here in Europe, we have to give us a bit of grace until we get to that point and not compare ourselves with that. But because a lot of people, I'm with you, don't know what goes into customer success, you don't see all the mini steps in between that lead to a better churn rate. That is actually also maybe a takeaway, or something that we always do, is if you want to achieve 0% churn, that is like an outcome, right? Or let's say 10% churn. Yeah. But that's an outcome. A strategy and a goal is establish certain analytics, like establish a health score, establish success plans, do a pipeline review with your CSMs, maybe put in all the service level. That's how often we do a QBR. That's how often we have renewal conversations. These are like tangible things that then will have an outcome that we can measure. But starting with the outcome without the idea on how, that just doesn't add up.
Do you feel like that sometimes when people just purely focus on churn, and like, oh, I want to like reduce churn, that they are not paying attention to the other side of it, that if you have well-established like post-sales process and you don't only focus on mitigating churn, that you can actually like upsell or enlarge the contracts that you already have by providing them like better experience?
Yes. I think it's in human nature that we look at what feels like the most burning problem and we try to fully jump in it. But it's so right. Like whenever we have customers that struggle with churn, whenever we start mentioning things like upsells, CS qualified leads, success stories, they're like, no. I want to keep the rest. Like, I'm worried about them. Stop talking to me about expansion. I get that. And we have to fix basically the leaking buckets as well. But I'm with you. Like, we might neglect all these happy and thriving customers. And your CSMs will only or compare themselves with negativity. And then obviously at the end of the day, you're like, what am I doing here? If I always get the for something and never the bright side. So I think like dividing your time up and outweighing what we lose with win on another end could also be a good deal. Imagine you losing one of these annoying customers that you didn't want to have anyhow, and then you manage to upsell one of your dream customers. Wonderful. If we're in the plus, why not?
Yeah, that's a win. And that probably saves you so much time because, just dealing with the problems and the complaints and everything, that is so time consuming, especially if you need to escalate. And, it probably is quite frustrating and demotivating for the CSMs as well. Because as you said, the negativity just feeds on you.
Yep. Very true. Very true. And you might overlook that you have a more systemic problem as well. Because sometimes we have CSM at this forefront and they are fighting to mitigate churn. But honestly, either we have a product problem or we have an ICP problem. I think the ICP point is actually a big one that we also see quite a bit. Maybe that's another fuck up. Never getting your ICP straight in the very beginning. And then, very roughly said, shit in and shit out. You get them in sales, then you kind of handle them through onboarding. A poor professional services person has to get their head around like integrating them, then they hand it on to CS, and they keep on causing headaches for the rest of their time being with you.
Not good.
Exactly. So it might be a way more deeply rooted problem. So another thing that we recommend, or that we try always if we want to get to this like unrealistic outcome or ideal outcome, try to do the root cause analysis further than you would think. Like at first it is a complaint and it's a lot of support tickets. But why is that? Is that an onboarding problem? Does the onboarding problem exist because the tech never fit in the first place? Is that because sales sold something that was never the right candidate or ICP in the first place? All of that could be setting screws.
So that's actually great advice to look at that first. But what would be like your other advice for people that are looking to, like either build customer success function or post-sales function from scratch or optimize their processes? Like how should they set realistic expectations so they don't fall into this unachievable bucket that is going to end up frustrating and costing everyone?
Yes. That's a good question. It's probably a mix of things. So I, again, would start with the big goal. Your CS team is created in order to reduce churn, for example. Where does the churn come from? What is the action items that I can take out of that? So, for example, churn comes from customers never going live fully, never being fully enabled. Okay, let's take a step back. Who owns onboarding? How do we handle onboarding? What do we do for continuous enablement? And from there, get a takeaway that, for example, is like, I want to increase product adoption by X this year. That's already a way more tangible thing. And if my hypothesis is true, that adoption leads to better health and to customers staying, then I have a direct impact on my bigger goal. But this way, I can break it down, and then I need leadership. A single CSM by themselves cannot make that
not
call.
Change anything. Yeah,
exactly. They can only put reason behind it. They can question it. But then the big thing also is get leadership on board and bring them on this thoughts process, breaking it down from company goals, strategic goals, functional goals, tactical goals, individual goals. And if we do that, it kind of rolls back up again. And we actually had a great process for that back at Twilio. It used really like a pendulum, is that a pendulum in English? Like something that sways from A to B. And it would go from strategic high level all the way to individual. And then it would roll back up again, which is a endless loop, which is a lot of work as well. But it was helpful because it kept us all accountable and it was all closely aligned. So
awesome.
That's very helpful.
And one last question that I have for you. So with all of these goals, do you think that they should be just tracked on the department level? Or if you set up a goal like that, it should be company-wide initiative? Because what I see in a space and when I talk to people is that what makes it often fail is that they set up some goal, but then they don't follow up or don't discuss that goal with the wide organization. And, there are departments or people that can contribute. And if it's a holistic approach, it always works better than just a very limited approach.
Yes, absolutely. The more aligned, the better, this way around. If any of our listeners are in leadership positions, please do get together with other functional leaders. If you are a CSM, please question also what is happening in the other departments. Because if the goals don't match, we have competing priorities. Imagine sales running for net new and they have compensation and even sales challenges on bring on everything that's living and breathing and get them to sign. Whereas CS has this goal of increasing the health score and increasing loyalty. Those things don't go together. So that's
they don't
divided in the first place. But again, ideally, if we, for example, set out a certain goal around satisfaction, around growth, whatever it might be on a company-wide level, and we break it down into not more than 2-3 operational goals or strategies, then those need to go through for every single team. In my opinion,
Absolutely.
It can't be that a whole company or different teams run into entirely different directions. Everybody should know top 3 company goals means this for me. And then by definition, I can't go completely against it because it just wouldn't add up.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And then the other thing is go talk about the results also. So I know it's tiring and I know we don't have time, but things like monthly updates, quarterly reviews together, reporting on things also that don't go as great throughout the year, so important. Otherwise, you sit at the next sales kickoff and you have to report this one number that is, surprise, not at 0%, but at 12%. But we came from 20. So take them on a journey of how did we get there instead of just presenting, we failed at the next kickoff.
Oh, yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Some great input, Sally. Thank you very much for sharing your story and expertise with us. If any of our listeners wanted to continue this conversation or wanted to pick your brain a little bit, where could they find you?
Yes, that's a great point. Thanks a lot. So you find me on LinkedIn anytime, Customer Obsessing Consulting. We are also very active on there. We do have a little Slack community if you prefer staying in your usual chats. And otherwise, at any community event that is happening either in the German-speaking area or in mainland Europe, you probably also find one of us jumping around.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sally. I really appreciate that you found time to be here today. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Stay tuned for another episode of Retain and Gain. Bye. And that's a wrap for this episode of Retain and Gain. Stay tuned for more insights and don't forget to subscribe. Until next time.